a corporate ladder, a name that will echo across the galaxy, and now a servant. Who is my servant and who is my master? John Reese always knew he was destined for greater things. There was just something about him, a certain je ne sais quoi that told him he was meant for more than his humdrum life working in shipping. Something big, something galactic was out there waiting for him, and he was going to find it. The opportunity came in the form of Mr. Carlton Hyde. The man was so wealthy, so powerful, he made Elon Musk look like a pauper, and he wanted John to sign one simple contract, and everything he ever wanted would be his. Power, wealth, influence, adulation, it was all right there on the dotted line. But John didn't read the contract. Why would he? All that glitters isn't gold, but then again, neither is every contract. So he put pen to paper, signed his name, and everything started to go wrong. You see, when John Reese signed that contract, he became indentured servitude to the person who had commissioned it. And he didn't realize it at first, because said person was actually off-planet when John signed the document. So instead of being greeted by his new master, John found himself promoted at work and thrust into the limelight. Then 2 days later, Carlton V. Hyde disappeared, and the media went crazy. Then 3 days after that, John was contacted by Carlton's lawyer and informed that as per the terms of the contract, he was now the property of Carlton V. Hyde and would be whisked away to some remote location until such time as Carlton returned from his vacation. And finally, 5 days after that, John was summoned to the front door of his house where he was greeted by a transport that would make any Sci-Fi fan drool with envy. Hovering majestically outside his window, looking like something straight out of Avatar or Mass Effect, was a transport unlike anything John had ever seen before. It was sleek, silver, about the size of a city bus, but without any discernible windows or markings. Then a ramp extended from the bottom of the ship onto his lawn, and 2 figures stepped out. One was a man. Tall, handsome, well-dressed, he looked exactly like Carlton Hyde. The other was a woman, taller than most men, muscular and green-skinned. She had large black eyes and huge bat-like wings folded neatly behind her back. She also had pointed ears, webbed hands and feet, and the tail of an iguana. "Greetings," the green-skinned woman said to John in perfect English. "I am Xylar of the Krill race, and you are John Reese. We have been expecting you." "Expecting me?" John asked, confused. "What the hell is going on here?" "That is a question best answered by Master Carlton," Chiller replied. "But he has expressly forbidden me from answering any questions you might have regarding the nature of your servitude." "Servitude?" John scoffed. "I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but it's not funny anymore. Where's Carlton? Why did you bring this thing?" He gestured towards Chiller. "My apologies," Carlton said. "But as Xylar has already informed you, our master has expressly forbidden us from answering your questions." "You're so dead, Carlton," John yelled. "I'm going to sue you for false imprisonment, for fraud, for unlawful conversion of indentured servitude." Carlton smiled coldly. "You can try, but you're not going to get very far. The contract is perfectly legal. Everything is above board. You signed it. Therefore, you are bound." "Bound to what?" John demanded. "And what is this about your stupid games?" "Patience, John," Carlton said. "All will become clear in time. For now, you must come with us." Before John could protest further, he was roughly grabbed by the scruff of his neck and hauled towards the transport. Then, with a final glance back at his house, which he realized he may never see again, he was ushered onto the transport, and the doors slid closed. As the transport shot up into the air, Xylar turned to John and finally spoke. "Your master has great plans for you, John Reese. Plans that will change your life forever. Are you ready?" "For what?" John snapped back. "For my new life as a space slave?" "Not at all," Xylar said with a smile. "Your master has purchased you so that you can serve him. That is all. Now address me as you would my master, because until he returns, I am in charge." And so began John's new career as an indentured servant. Of course, the situation was far from ideal, but it wasn't terrible either. After all, he was still on Earth, albeit only just. And though Chiller was somewhat strict and enforced Carlton's orders with military precision, she was also fair. She ensured that John ate well, slept well, and was generally treated better than many human servants on Earth. In fact, she was so attentive to his needs that when John asked her about the nature of his servitude, she actually told him what she knew. "When we return to Carlton's home, you will meet him, and then he will inform you of the nature of your servitude. I am to ensure your comfort until then, and if you have any requests, I will do my utmost to fulfill them." Well, that was nice, but it didn't answer John's questions. Like, why did Carlton buy him? What was he planning? And who the hell was Xylar? But perhaps the biggest elephant in the room was the fact that John was now indentured servitude to an alien. In fact, not just any alien, mind you, but a member of one of the most feared races in the galaxy, the Krill. Despite their relatively small stature, no one messed with the Krill because they were just too damn dangerous. With huge bat-like wings that could carry them across galaxies in mere moments, razor-sharp talons that could rend steel like tissue paper, and teeth that would make Freddy Krueger look like a Boy Scout, the Krill were terrifying to behold. Fortunately, though, Xylar didn't seem to want to harm John. In fact, she seemed almost friendly, which was a relief to say the least. Finally, after a week of luxurious travel, the transport touched down and Xylar announced, "We are here." She led John out onto a balcony overlooking a garden that appeared to be thriving despite being suspended in the vacuum of space. They walked through the garden until they reached a building that looked like a cross between a palace and a spaceship. Then, with a flourish, Xylar pushed open the doors and announced, "Welcome to my master's home." As John stepped inside, he was greeted by the sight of Carlton sitting in an armchair, sipping tea and watching him. A wide smile spread across his face. "Ah, John, you've arrived. I was beginning to think you'd never get here." Yeah, whatever," John replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "So what's the plan?" "The plan," Carlton repeated, "is simple. I bought you because I need someone to run my company while I'm gone. Someone trustworthy, someone reliable, someone special." "You want me to run your company?" John asked, confused. "Indeed," Carlton said with a smile. "You'll do just fine. I promise you that." Then Carlton turned to Xylar and said, "Xylar, it's time." "Yes, master," she replied. Then, much to John's surprise, she took a step forward and knelt down in front of him. "What are you doing?" John whispered, horrified. "As you are now my master's property, he wishes for me to serve you as you see fit until his return. I am yours to command." "Whoa," John breathed, suddenly feeling very uncomfortable. I don't want this. Can't we just forget this whole thing ever happened?" "Unfortunately, that is not possible, John," Carlton said, stepping forward. "The contract is airtight. You signed it. Therefore, you are bound." "Bound to what?" John demanded, his voice rising in anger. Bound to Xylar," Carlton replied with a smile. "She is your servant now. Do with her as you please." John stared at Xylar, who was still kneeling in front of him. She looked up at him with those huge black eyes, and John felt his resolve crumble. He didn't want this. He didn't want any of this. But it was too late now. He was trapped. But then Xylar did something that surprised him. She stood up and walked over to him. "Please," she whispered, extending her hand. "Help me. I am in servitude to my master, but he is cruel and abuses his power. If you free me, I will serve you with unwavering loyalty." John hesitated, torn between his desire to escape his situation and his fear of the consequences. But as he looked into Xylar's pleading eyes, he knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, he reached out and took her hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "but I can't let you do this to yourself." Xylar's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have freed me from my servitude." As John led Xylar away from Carlton, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had defied the odds and won, and as he looked into Xylar's grateful eyes, he knew that he had made the right decision. So what happens next? Will Carlton seek revenge on John for freeing Xylar? Or will John and Xylar team up to take Carlton down? Stay tuned to find out.